Okay, we're recording. Chip, my man, what's going on?
What's going on? Thanks for having me. Thanks for putting this thing together. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm always in for up for learning, talking to people about stuff, and I figure
Matt, I can't hear
2021.
you anymore.
Can't hear me now? Can you guys hear me?
Um,
I can hear
Now
you,
I
Matt.
can hear you.
There we go. Okay, so you can hear me again. So I figure it's 2021. It's time to talk about technology. I was kind of cracking up because I remember literally the week before the pandemic hit, when I had no clue the pandemic was going to hit. We all knew some weird thing was happening overseas. And I had this client of mine that I was talking to about online ordering. And he's like, I don't need that. I got this. And I'm like, dude, I think you ought to probably look at it because I know his brand pretty well. And even though we don't do online ordering, I try to advise, and my team of 40 plus try to advise our clients and companies we work with on things that are out there that they probably should look at. And this guy was a guy that has done really well in the restaurant business, multiple locations, and was like, we don't need it. And then literally the day afterwards, he calls me, okay, how do I do this thing? And so we helped him through it. So the pandemic forced a lot of what we've all been talking about for years, which is the use of technology in your restaurant. My accountant was all excited when he got back from a accounting webinar last January, and they talked about this thing called Zoom. And he thought that was the coolest thing ever. And here we are now. Everybody knows it. So Chip, I guess introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself real quick, and then we'll get dive into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. My name is Chip Klose. I live here in New York City. I work as a restaurant consultant. I've spent the last 20 years working in hospitality, the last 5 or 6 as a business coach and a restaurant consultant. I'm also the host of the Restaurant Strategy podcast, show I've hosted for the last 2.5 years, where we try to keep things, make things understandable and keep things actionable. Break down kind of these complicated ideas, make them simple. Not easy, but simple, so that people can put them into practice. There's a difference between simple and easy. One of those things is technology. It's something that I love talking about quite a bit, and understanding how we can integrate it into our businesses, because it's something like marketing, something that restaurants don't often do. We are notoriously late to the party when it comes to a lot of things, and one of them being the way that we integrate technology into our operations.
No, I agree completely. And quick background on me: I'm Matt Plapp, the CEO of America's Best Restaurants. We are a nationwide company. I'm located in Northern Kentucky. I'm in our studio.
I think we lost you again.
I think it's your headphones. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, Matt.
Yeah, I think it's your headphones, Chip. I think you're having it's funny, we're having technology difficulties on a technology webinar. But my company, America's Best Restaurants, we are located in Northern Kentucky, just south of Cincinnati. We're actually next to the Cincinnati airport, which ironically is not in Cincinnati. I'm in our studios. We've got it's called the Deep Work Studios, part of our building. We have a 9,000 square foot building called Deep Work Studios and Deep Work Space, where we invite restaurateurs to come work out of here. And then my team works out of here, one of the 2 levels occasionally. But we work with restaurants across the country. We have a TV show called America's Best Restaurants, which is going to be something you know about in the near future. We've got 2 vans, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, that film anywhere from 30 to 50 episodes a week of our show, which helps highlight independent restaurant operators, help tell their story, get the word out about them, and then give them a platform they control. Myself, as the CEO, I don't do a whole lot in the business besides a voice and ideas. I'm not in the kitchen too much cooking with the clients, but I help advise on what we do. We've been around since '08. And ironically, Chip, I don't know if I told you this or not, but I started working at a restaurant last week. I started working at one of our companies we help, a place called Rapid Fired Pizza in Florence, Kentucky. I've always worked around marketing since 1999 in restaurants. I've sat in the dining room and the kitchens and met with the GMs, but I had never actually served customers. So starting last Friday, I worked 2 days a week at a restaurant, 3 to 5 hours a pop, and work in front of house. I actually made some pizzas and did all that fancy stuff, which was kind of fun, but that's who I am. And so what I like to do is just talk about topics that I think restaurants need to know about. And one of those to me is technology, whether it's online ordering or third party, or as basic as technology gets, sending emails to your customers, aggregating data from your customers, how to easily and seamlessly get information from customers, and then also not having digital components that suck. I was on a website the other day for a restaurant that it looked like I created it in 1999, which is how I got into marketing. I created a website for a boat and RV dealership me and my dad and brother created. It was called outdoorconsignments.com. It was on Adobe Page Mill. And I swear the website I saw the other day was on Adobe Page Mill. And I'm like, wow. So Chip, let's talk about it. Let's usually like to dig in these things 30, 40 minutes, but a couple of things that I like to talk about. So QR codes, like we've been using QR codes forever. And it cracked me up because, I mean, back 5, 6 years ago, you had to download an app for it, and consumers thought it was some weird barcode. And I was at a little bit of an advantage in the Cincinnati area that Procter & Gamble was testing QR codes a lot, but still nobody used them. Now people are using them. Are you advising restaurants to go back to printed menus, or should we force the hand and force customers to digitally consume our menus?
It's a great question, but I'd actually like to back up a little bit before we tackle that, because I don't think this is, I think, a little bit of what I keep facing, right?
Yep.
With operators is that we hear all these buzzwords, social media, table ordering, QR codes, email, right? Like we talk about all these solutions without making sure that we, like any of these digital fixes that get inserted into our business, are meant to solve inefficiencies,
Yep.
to solve problems that we have in our operations. And too often, I think operators just keep hearing somebody say, "Oh, you should be doing QR codes. Oh, you should be doing that. You should do this. You should." They get it all the time without stopping to think, "What do I need in my business?" Because my business is totally different. One of the things that I'm spending a lot of time thinking about and talking about right now is the difference between a restaurant and a business, right? Operators own a business. It's not necessarily a restaurant. And I think this is a little bit of the danger that restaurateurs get into as they think of themselves as restaurant owners. Because the danger is that we think of what a restaurant, how we define a restaurant, right? What a restaurant has been for the last 200 years. That is rapidly changing very, very quickly, right? Like what we do, how we engage with customers, how staff and customers engage, how customers engage with their food and all that. It's changing at the speed of light now. If we let it, it's going to lead us somewhere really cool, much more profitable, much more enjoyable, much more exciting. So when we talk about the QR codes, we have to talk about what the business needs, right? For a certain kind of restaurant, high-end, fine dining, $200-$300 a head, maybe they don't want a QR code and make the people sit there on their phone. So there isn't this one-size-fits-all approach. Does a fine dining restaurant need a QR code? I don't know that they do. Maybe they do. I don't know that they do, though. For a lot of restaurants more casual, though, yeah, absolutely. But I will say this. If you're going to do a QR code to scan the menu, you're already halfway there. You've got to go to full table ordering, which is the other thing that I'm spending a lot of time working on, which is that if you're already getting someone to pick up a digital, to engage with you digitally while they're sitting in your four walls, just get them to go the full way, because them scanning, using their phone to scan the menu and to look at what they want is saving you printing costs. A couple bucks a day, a couple dozen bucks a day. But if you can get them to just order on their own, then there are ways to optimize that experience so that we drive more revenue, cut expenses because we'll need less servers, and create a better guest experience because people won't have to flag down their server. They can just order the thing they want when they want it. So,
Plus, when they order it wrong, it's on them. The server didn't put pickles on it. You chose pickles.
You're totally right. There are a dozen ways that this improves the situation if you can insert table ordering. So table ordering is I think the future of restaurants. I think 5 years from now, 70% of the restaurants in this country are going to be table ordering. We're not going to engage with a waiter in the way that we were used to, that we are now used to engaging with waiters. We just don't need them. They're half their jobs are wildly inefficient, and I think it's so obvious to me when you look at again, the data is clear how much more revenue it can drive per order. It's very clear how much it can cut payroll. And it's very clear about how the ways in which it can improve the guest experience. It is obvious that is where we're going. Not for every restaurant, but that is where we're going. Whether people do it on their phones, or there's tablets placed on the table, or a kiosk, or some sort of screen that you engage with, that's where we're going. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of efficiencies to be had by doing that. And I just actually was talking to an operator today that came on board with our company, helping him do some stuff. And we were talking about the value of digital marketing, helping, implant the idea of a certain dessert in that person's mind so that every time they come in the restaurant, they get it. I said, let's just face it. Your servers are terrible at selling desserts, aren't they? And he's like, yeah, they don't do it at
Terrible.
all. I said, so it's our job as a digital marketing company to help make sure that customer comes in getting that dessert because the server's not going to ask for it. And I think that that's one thing that online ordering helps out a lot of suggestive selling. There's a lot of opportunities. The one thing I look at from a marketing standpoint too, especially working in the restaurant the last week, a couple of days, I was noticing things that I think operators don't notice because you're in there. And I'm talking to Michael. I said to the owner, I said, heck, how come that thing over there is empty? That's the little brochure holders, two of them. And he's like, oh, that used to be our menus and they're fast casual. There's no reason for a printed menu. Like you walk in, there it is. The experience is guided by a person making your product. And so I was just looking at little things like that. And I'm also thinking back to some of the restaurants I go to that like half the time I got the menus, they were gross. Like it was, I got this thing in my hand that's got like, who knows who's like barbecue sauce that was from how many days ago. But also for me, from the marketing side, like I love what you're talking about with the table order. And I agree. There's gonna be a lot of restaurants that go that route that'll help the restaurant succeed more. I also look at it from a marketing standpoint. Like I was telling a client the other day, they've got their QR code in the restaurant and it scans and it goes to an awesome menu on their website. And I said, here's what I want you to do next. I said, I want you to duplicate this page. And I want the page that I land on from the scanned QR code in the restaurant to not be a visible page on your website to a generic consumer. And I want the one that's on your menu on your website that people can choose and look at randomly to be different. I said, and he said, why? I said, because the people that see menu A, the one they scan in house, that they've been in the restaurant. So that gives you retargeting ability to run Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Google campaigns based on somebody that was on a page that the only way they saw it was sit in your four walls. So that might be a way to get customer sentiment, surveys, reviews. It might be a way to retarget for the next visit. It might be a way to retarget for what time of day were they there? They were on that page, lunch or dinner, target for something else. I said, otherwise you're retargeting your entire menu traffic, assuming everybody was here. And there's probably a good portion of people that weren't there.
That's exactly right. And if you've got two different landing page for the menu and you assume one is for people just researching the restaurant, right? That's people making up their decision, deciding if they want to come, right? That's group A. And then the other people that are in the restaurant, the QR code takes them to another duplicate menu page that has a separate pixel. Well, then you're exactly right. You've segmented your audience. So we can assume group A is still on the fence. They haven't decided whether they want to join you. So you can send them ads to incentivize them, to put your thumb on the scale, to get them over on board. And then all your communications to group B should be about getting them to come back, giving them a reason to come back. Absolutely.
Yeah, and retargeting cracks me up because it's, to me, one of the easiest things we've been doing for a while. And I'd say 9 out of 10 restaurants I talk to on a weekly basis. Some of the first things I do, I got a guy today. We hopped on a call. He found me through a webinar a couple weeks ago. He called me Friday. We hopped on a Google Meet today. I pulled up all of his assets and I said, hey, by the way, I'm not going to be polite. I'm going to tell you what I see in maybe a nice manner, but I'm going to give you an honest opinion. And I asked him, do you know what a pixel is? And he's like, no, because I could tell his site didn't have it because we have a little tool that shows that. And I said, man, you're missing out on retargeting. I mean, people that are coming to your event page, your catering page, your wedding page, your menu page, there's all these different places. He had a page for his loyalty program. There's an opportunity to retarget those people that are in the loyalty program. There's probably a reason they're there. So there's a lot of cool things. So Keith had a question, raised his hand. Keith, what do you got, brother?
Yeah. Hey guys, just before, I thought Chip brought up some great points, and just a quick plug on my company. So we've been in the technology space specifically for restaurants for about 7 years exclusively now. So we work with brands like Mellow Mushroom, BurgerFi, Big Whiskeys, multitude brands that you're probably very familiar with. But I think a great point that Chip kind of hinted at that I would concur and agree with based on projects that we're currently about ready to deploy is that the future of the dining room is really a digital hybrid. So the QR code really became solvent once again when iOS 11 was released and your camera had these new capabilities on your smartphone that would allow you to pull that QR code. And a QR code is just a springboard to a URL, a domain. And what we're seeing in my little part of the restaurant vertical space as it relates to technology is that QR codes are sending them to unique digital menus like Chip had alluded to. But we're also doing things with smartwatches, for instance, to where a tableside app that's being leveraged on premise in the dining room is going to have the capability to call a server with AI-driven requests. So if I'm in a dining area and I'm going to call a server, and the server at this point becomes an expediter, they're just an operations role within the restaurant or within the dining room. But I can call a server through the app and say, I need another beer. I need another set of silverware. We're going to prompt the most frequent requests, right, that a server is going to have. And then that goes and propagates onto every smartwatch of every staff member all the way up to the GM. And that memo is not released until somebody acknowledges that the service has been handled for the guest. So that's what I mean about digital hybrid dining rooms, is that I think you're going to kind of see this convergence of where the best people in hospitality are going to get the best tech in hospitality as a sidecar. And it's going to allow them to be even better in that human touch, that intangible human touch. And then, and then we're also going to add, a facilitation effort for making sure that the guest can be as involved with the staff as they choose to be, or otherwise. So
Cool. Yeah.
it's something that we're actively doing and just giving you a heads up. And when we launch, hopefully some of the industry periodicals will pick up the launch, and I'll be sure to keep you guys in the loop as well.
Nice. Yeah, I think there's a space. There's certain restaurants that technology isn't going to play a big space. I mean, we deal with independents and franchises, and I prefer dealing with independents because you get an owner that typically is way more involved, and they've built the systems that they're doing. They're not guessing. Like, I won't say which brand you mentioned there, but one of those brands you mentioned there is a thorn in my side in life sometimes. But you got people in the ivory towers that create systems, and they've never implemented those systems. So there's a lot of restaurants that are independent that it's cool to see how they've actually put things in place and make things work versus franchises. But I think digital, obviously you can't hide. It's a huge thing. The one part too, I thought you were going to say Chip, but you didn't. But I think another aspect that kind of comes in with the place that people need to take the extra step when they scan that QR code, which is what we do, is get data. Is that somebody, like right now, like there's people all over the country scanning QR codes to go look at a menu or to go do something on their website. And what they should be doing is also asking people, hey, like me, I'm a fan of bribing people. And I was told recently by a company that bribing was an incorrect word. I'm like, okay, my bad. But, ask somebody, hey, we see you're looking at our menu. You're sitting in the restaurant. Do you want a dessert free today? Because we know they're not buying the dessert. Great. Click this button, answer 3 questions, then look at the menu, and you got a dessert coming your way for your meal. What do you think about data, pulling data in?
Usually what I recommend is if you're going to use this QR, if you're going to use a QR code to a menu, I recommend putting like a pop-up on the menu page. So not necessarily locking it. Not that you have to, put in your information to get to it, but putting a pop-up specifically on that page that incentivizes people exactly like you've described. Yep. Again, you want a free dessert, you want a whatever it is, right? Whatever is appropriate for it. I totally agree, because it really does. It all comes down to data capture.
And it amazed me because a stat that a lot of people don't realize, and I see it firsthand. I sit in restaurants and I watch. I eat out pretty much every meal, and my team, I incentivize them to eat out and also sit in restaurants and just consume what's happening around you. 85% of people, like we got Sunnyside Kitchen on here, 85% on average of the people that walk in a restaurant like Sunnyside and walk back out, the restaurant does not have their information captured. Like that to me cracks me up, because if I owned a restaurant, I would do whatever it took outside of putting somebody in handcuffs, to make sure they didn't leave without me knowing their name, their gender, their phone number, their email, their birthday, because otherwise you're hoping and praying they come back. And that's a huge element. There's so many ways to capture data. I actually saw a place where they had the little bowl still with business cards. And I'm like, what is this, 1980? I mean, at least they were
Yeah,
trying.
you know what? But you know what, Matt? I can tell you, if it's between not doing anything and putting a fishbowl out there, put the fishbowl out there. That's just
I
like
agree. At least they
just
tried.
because that's the resistance I get from some operators. And I say, listen, if we got to pretend it's not 1092 again, let's do it. I just want to know who's coming in. We did this for a client of mine. We were doing this like little kid street fair kind of thing. And I said, listen, let's make this really analog. And so we did like 3 different analog touch points, and it was so, so good. And one of them was basically the fill this out, throw it in the fishbowl. We're doing a drawing at 5 o'clock. And man, we got hundreds and hundreds of emails. Now we've done digital versions of that for sure. We can certainly do that. But part of it was the show, the fun. We had a clown outside, a big fishbowl. The kids wanted to fill it out. It's, it was part of the thing. If it's between nothing and the fishbowl, do the fishbowl.
Oh yeah. I don't disagree. Yeah. Do something, something's better than nothing. I was cracking up. I hadn't seen one in a while, and they had one out. The other thing about technology, I think now too, is don't get shiny object syndrome. I see a lot of restaurants that are trying to, like, Keith mentioned the cool thing with the watches, and there's certain brands that can pull things off and certain that can't. And there's also brands that say, oh my God, I'm going to do this, do this, do this. I had a restaurant recently. I was speaking down at the South Carolina Restaurant Association show a couple weeks ago. And this guy had all these ideas. And I'm like, those all sound pretty cool. And I asked him about a couple things that in my mind fall before that. He's like, yeah, we're getting there. I go, well, then why don't you stop looking at new crap? Like, until you're executing, until your website doesn't suck, your social presence is awesome. Like, are you actually able to fulfill the online orders you're getting? I mean, is your Uber Eats not suck? I cracked up the other day. I talked to a guy. We were talking about third-party ordering. And I said, when was the last time you ordered your own food third party at somebody else's house? He said, what do you mean? I go, have you ever had your food delivered? And he's like, oh, I never have. I'm like, so you don't know what's showing up. I said, go to a buddy of yours house, have your buddy order a big old meal from your restaurant and see how it comes across. Because I can tell you, I guarantee you, your fries are pretty good in-house. They're probably terrible 25 to 30 minutes later, maybe an hour later. So there's a fascination with technology and fascination with, the fact that, oh my gosh, I can now get people to buy online or order delivery. I didn't have delivery before, but you got to make sure your product's ready for it. And along those notes, let's talk about third party. What are some things you're seeing that are helping restaurants, implement and profit more on third party and use it better?
Yeah, it's a great question. But again, I'm gonna like back it up and just say, before we talk about third party and third party partners and first party and are we taking, orders natively on the site, or are we doing an app? Or before that, we got to take a step back and say, what are we? What business are we in? Again, we're a business. We're not a restaurant. What do we do? What do we? Who do we serve? What problem do we solve? Let's figure that out, right? I mean, this is the lesson we learned over the course of the pandemic, right? The pivot, right? Is that as a restaurant owner, I solved one problem for a guest, right? People needed somewhere to come to breakfast before they went to work. Great, I provided the food and a place for them to sit and have breakfast. And then they couldn't go out anymore. I couldn't serve them anymore. They were inside. Well, they still had a problem. They just had a different problem than what I helped them solve before. Now, this is where everybody went to the pivot, right? They used to do in-person dining, and then they went to takeout, partially because that was the only thing they could do.
Yep.
But coming from like an empathetic place, right, is that you have to look at your audience, your customer, and say, they needed me for one thing a year ago, 2 years ago, and now they need me for something else. So delivery is exploding, and we are at the beginning of delivery, like you just said a second ago, right? Delivery food still sucks, largely still sucks. Doesn't matter where you get it from. Some places have figured it out, but I'm amazed at the number of places that serve the same menu in the restaurant and on takeout. It doesn't work.
That doesn't
It's
work at all.
unbelievable. You need a lot of the restaurants that I've coached with, we have a whole different menu. It's a whole separate menu. It's number one, smaller. Number two, it's optimized to travel. I always give the example of Domino's, right? So you go back to the 80s. Pizza Hut owned pizza. That's it. They owned pizza because the thing was to go out. On Friday night, everybody went out to get pizza. And Domino's said, I think there's an opportunity. We're going to do pizza at home. We're going to own takeout pizza. We're going to own delivery, right? And they made a play. And they specifically designed their pizza to be delivered. It wasn't meant to be consumed in the store. They didn't have a store. It was meant to be sent home. So it was optimized to basically steam in the box for the last 20 minutes. So it was half cooked, if you think of it that way. It was half cooked coming out of the oven. It went in a box. They closed the box, and it continued cooking. So it arrived and it finished its cooking process in the commute to get to your place, right? So that was optimized for that. How many places are optimizing their menus to just go out the door? And there's no one. My father-in-law is notorious for this. He has a very short list of places that he'll get delivery from. Yep. Or takeout, because he said it doesn't travel well. And he's absolutely right. It doesn't travel. Most delivery and takeout is just never great.
I mean, it's the ultimate undercover boss. Like nobody you can
nobody does it. You're absolutely right. Nobody ever goes 2 blocks away and orders food. Like you have to see what happens when you order your food. Yep. But to answer your question then, how do I feel about third-party ordering? You got to go back and understand, what business are you in? What problem are you solving? Can you solve a compelling problem, or can you solve an outline problem, an outstanding problem in a compelling fashion? Can you do it better than anyone else out there, right? Maybe you don't need to be in the delivery business. Maybe you need to be exclusively in the delivery business, right? I talk a lot about diversifying revenue streams. That's one main reason why I think delivery matters. But I think we're going to start, I think delivery is really going to start broadening to be, at-home meal kits or take and bake. Take and bake, I love. That's something that's totally that we haven't even really gotten into, where everything's all prepped and it's all just meant to go in the oven, right? So it says, put this in, set it for 400 degrees for 25 minutes. 10 minutes later, throw in this and let that cook the rest of the way, right? Like that's going to be. We haven't seen nearly enough of that. I was working with a brand last year on that. And they made brilliant meals that sent home that were way better than they could have sent their delivery stuff.
And we dug into that with some operators. The biggest problem there is that, like me and my wife, we ordered food the other night. We ordered when we were already hungry, and so we can't wait. We're chomping at the bit for that dude to come knocking on the door. And the last thing we want to do is pop it in for 20 minutes. But yeah, it's got to be more of a planned purchase.
But now we're talking about, and this is what marketing does, right? I mean, Matt, you know this. Do we follow people or do we lead the people, right? As marketers, you can answer that 1,000 ways, but marketers make a change, right? Seth Godin always says, right? Marketing is about making a change happen. If the change doesn't happen, the marketing didn't work. So what we're in is the culture business. We're in the behavior business, right? So now it's just a matter of getting to people at 3:30, 4 o'clock. I'm telling you, when I get to the end of my workday, at 4 o'clock, if you give me a really compelling offer to get something delivered that I'm going to finish the rest of the way, like that's great. I don't have to wait till 6:15 to realize when I'm starving. 4 o'clock, I'm already starting to think about dinner and what I'm doing. We just have to change the behavior of when people think about what they're doing for dinner, how they're preparing dinner, where they're going to order their dinner from. That will happen, as we've seen, right? QR codes. We started off this conversation. QR codes have been around since 1995. Toyota invented QR codes to track car parts. This technology is nothing new. It is outdated. It is stale, right? The fact that now we just got quick adoption because we had to. The culture had to change. Behavior had to change. Same thing with table ordering, right? It's like, well, we don't have any staff. They're all at home on unemployment. If you want food, you got to order it yourself. People are like, okay, what choice do I have? I got to order it myself. That taught us a really valuable lesson in the industry. Again, we can optimize that experience. We can cut labor in the meantime. I've got operators went from 32% labor to 17, 16, 15. And he's like, I've hit the promised land, right? Like everything I wanted for my business now I'm at, I went from 7% profitability to 16, 17, 18% simply by getting rid of the front of house labor. It's like, if that doesn't tell us, right, all the things we struggle with, in operations for restaurants, razor thin profit margins. I talk about it on the podcast all the time. Every time I talk to operators, it's about managing our expenses because there's such razor thin profit margins. And here, the world gave us QR codes and an iPhone and allowed us a way to cut our labor in half. Why are we fighting with technology? There are places all along the way to do. There are things. There are replacements here. There are improvements. Technology is improving inefficiencies, and still we take this analog place of like, well, people want to be together with people, and I want to talk to my waiter. The last time I had a waiter either upsell me, like really upsell me and like drive me to spend more money, or improve my experience in a meaningful way, it was 10 years ago. I mean, really, it just doesn't happen. So we shouldn't be so precious with waiters. And I keep joking around, right? Talking about it with clients. People are like, I can't find waiters. Time out. Why do you still have waiters?
Yeah.
We don't need waiters. So a long way of saying that there's technology at every point in our process if we choose to inject it into the process. Your question was third-party delivery.
Yep.
I think third-party delivery goes back to this idea of, again, I'm going to take a digital thing and make it analog. It's all about location, location, location. 40 years ago, it was about getting a great corner spot on a great avenue, right? It's about being in a prime location because you had to be where the people are. Well, this is where the people are. People are right here. That's why digital matters, right? So location actually matters less, except we have to define location differently. And then it matters a great deal. So now people aren't wandering down the street saying, well, where do you want to eat? And looking at the menus in the street. They're not. We've spent 18 months in our houses. They're looking online. So you have to be there. So third-party delivery, you got to look at as an advertising buy.
Yep.
I believe.
So
I believe
I've said from day one, it's a customer acquisition tool.
It's a customer acquisition tool. You have to have a strategy for converting them to first person, just like you have to have a strategy for getting a first-time diner to become a repeat diner, right? None of this, I always talk about, like there's this hope and pray. Matt, you talk about this a lot. You talk about it in your book. It's certainly foundational to the business you've built, right? This whole idea, I always yell, the thing that drives me crazy more than possibly anything else in our industry is when somebody gets up to leave a restaurant, we say, thanks so much, have a good night. Like, what? Thank you so much. When are you coming back? Thanks so much. Can I make another reservation for you? Thanks so much. Hey, who's that couple that you came in with last time? You should bring them back. We haven't seen them in a while. Thank you so much. I want more of your business. Let me take care of you. We do a really bad job of doing that. It's all of marketing, exists, especially digital marketing, to try and get people to come back. So let's go out of our way to actually ask them. So just like we need a plan to get first-time diners to become repeat diners, we need people to be introduced to our food. If that happens through DoorDash and Seamless, okay, great. Then let's figure out a way to retain them, to turn them into a repeat customer. And maybe that's through Seamless, or maybe that's getting them onto our first-party ordering. Yep. There are all kinds of different ways to do that, but you need a plan. I mean, it is a customer acquisition tool, first and foremost, and it needs to be part of a larger strategy. It's absolutely crucial. You can't live without it, at least right now. Let's see how the wind blows over the next 2 years. But you can't live without it, but it needs to be part of a broader strategy.
Yeah, it's the same as your sign. Your sign's meant to get somebody driving down the street to stop and go, I want to try pizza there. It's a sign on a phone. And the problem is people keep complaining about the pricing or this or that. And I'm like, at the end of the day, it's up to you of how you get that. And it's funny you mentioned your little story there. I've got a whole list of notes in my phone from working at the restaurant. And my goal the first 2 to 3 weeks is just to soak it all in, because I don't want to go in guns a-blazing, because he's given me some some ability to make some changes in some of their front of house operational from a marketing standpoint. And so with regards to how people order at Rapid Fire, you walk up and you have a pizza made for you right in front of you. It's delicious, by the way. And these people walk up and you can tell how they look at the menu if they've been there, or you can tell if they're prepared. And so one thing they ask a lot is, hey, have you been here before? And this lady said, it's been a long time. He's okay, let me refresh you a little. And then boom, they went through and ordered pizza. They got down to the register. I was the one that was cutting their pizza. It comes like 3 minutes out of the oven. I cut it up into 8 pieces, put it in a little box, asked him want some sauces. I said, hey, I got a question. Why has it been a long time since you've been here? I said, I heard you say it down there. So, oh, it's just this, that, and the other, all these reasons. I said, okay, well, you got to promise you're not going to be a stranger anymore. And so in the future, when I have my way, there'll be tools in their hands to make that happen. But I didn't, we're not there yet. And so I noticed that they're out there sitting there, and apparently they had went to some event, And the couple that came in behind them that sat near them, they've been to the third place in a row they saw each other at. And they're joking about it, like, oh my gosh, it's so funny. We saw each other, and they're out there eating. And so as they're getting ready to leave, and same thing, hey, thanks for coming. I went, hey, next Saturday, noon, both you couples back here, you got to see each other again. So kind of trying to get that commitment to it, and it cracks me up because you're right. A lot of places there, and there's tools to say, hey, here's a way. Like for me, we're going to have things in place to walk up and say, hey, for your next visit, you haven't been in a while, scan this, answer five questions. You're going to get something amazing for your next visit. Because all I'm trying to do is get a commitment, but at the same time, get data, get information, all that good stuff.
You talk about it in your book, so and you put it so eloquently. You say we're just trying to get people to raise their hands. We're just getting people to buy in, to say, yeah, me, great. Who's been here before? Yeah, me, great. You got buy-in. You got someone to raise their hand. Hey, when are you coming back? Hey, what do you like here? Like, just getting people to raise their hands, to identify the people. This is marketing, right? To identify the people who love what you do, or would be most apt to love what it is you do. That's what you're trying to do. We don't need a very big audience to make a restaurant succeed. You really don't. I mean, this is
600.
This is that idea. Yeah, this is the idea of the smallest viable audience, right? The Kevin Kelly, the 1,000 true fans. You don't need a lot of people to like your business or love your business. You just need a small, passionate group to absolutely love what you do. It's this idea Seth Godin talks about, the 0%. Statistically, what you need is 0% to like your food to be successful, and not just break even, but to be very successful.
Yep.
8 billion people on this planet. You
Small.
need a rounding error about 0% to make you guys successful every single night. And when you think about that, it allows you to really focus in and really understand. This is so much of the work I do with what is it you do? Who are you for? Who else is trying to serve that same audience? What problem do you solve?
Yep.
And how are you different than everybody else out there trying to solve that same problem? If you can figure out how you're different, why you're better, right? That marketing unique selling proposition, then you'll get really rabid fans. They're all marketing problems. They just can't be solved with marketing. They all have to be solved operationally. I'm absolutely convinced. That's what I do.
When I spoke at in South Carolina a couple weeks ago, the week before, I had challenged somebody, and they said, show me the numbers. I said, you only have to impact. Like, you've got your restaurant, you've got your core, you've been open 5 years, you've got your core clients. I said, you realize for $100,000 in net profit, you have to impact 600, or was it 600 people a year? What do you mean 600 people a year? I said, 600. Bullshit, man. I said, okay, I put it on paper. And I did it, and I ended up using my presentation a couple weeks ago. I'm using it this week in Vegas. I showed them, I said, you got 600 people. You're going to get 200 people that are brand new. Never been. You're going to get them to come 5 or 6 times a year. You got 200 people that, like this lady, have been, but what happened to them? Why'd they go away? Why'd their pattern get changed? What interruption they have? And that's going to make a certain level of impact. And you got 200 people that are already good customers, but you're going to either get them to become bigger customers or bring somebody with them. I said, so you've got, everybody thinks it's some huge number, but that's 600 people at 6 visits a piece. That's 3,600 visits at your average check minus food costs and a couple other things. And you get 6 figures in incremental profit because you did all those things. But the leverage there is you have to have a digital strategy to find those 600 people. You got to get these 200 new ones off Instagram and Facebook, get these 200 off of Uber Eats, Max Pizza Pub in Covington. I knew about them. I had eaten there years ago. When the pandemic hit, we were unusual. I still went to work every day. We still traveled. We did our thing, but we went down to downtown Cincinnati, our old office, and we're like, man, where do we get food from? Everybody's closed. And I got on Uber Eats, and I'm like, oh shit, man, Max Pizza Pub. I forgot about them. And so we ordered wings and pizza. I opened my bag, and the most non-digital element captured me. It had a handwritten Post-it note. It said, Matt, we appreciate your business during these tough times. Did you know we deliver for free? Please order direct next visit. No discount, no offer, no fancy QR code like I would have done. Guess where we ordered from every Wednesday the next 3 months? Max Pizza Pub.
Yep.
And it's a matter of just redirecting, but it's like you got to get 200 people for 3 pots.
it's this mindset shift, right? Getting people, I think people like all of us, not just all of us like to be picked, right? All of us like to be discovered, found. We like to be anointed, right? Whether it's, whether it's the actress sitting behind the counter being discovered, becoming a superstar, whether it's the restaurant being discovered, getting written up in the paper, right? Anybody who's worked I've been here in New York City, I've opened multiple, restaurants at the highest level. There's a machine in place to get the writer to write about it we can't tailor what he eventually writes, but we can do our best to help shape that experience that will give them the shorthand with which to write about us, right? But everyone likes to be picked. But there's a machine that goes into place, not dissimilar to the machine that goes into place to market your restaurant, to raise awareness for your brand. It's the simple funnel, right? It's the ADA model. This is nothing new. Had this stuff for 70 years. It's just very, very simple. We got to raise awareness. We have population, right? I'm in a city of 8 million people. I open a restaurant, I open a burger place down the street. I think it's safe to say 7.6 million of the 8 million people here in New York City will never know about it because I live in some little corner of Brooklyn, right? They're never going to hear about us. It's not going to be worth the inconvenience to come all the way out this way. Great. I don't have to worry about marketing to, let's say, 7 million of them. There are maybe 1 million here in my neighborhood, in my part of Brooklyn, that could get to this place. Great. That narrows down who I'm potentially going to market to. You take a population and you figure out who's most apt to like this. And this is what so many marketers don't do. I mean, Matt, tell me, I'm sure you've had this. One of the first questions I always ask an operator when I sit down, I always say, tell me about your restaurant. Who's your restaurant for? What do they tell me?
Everybody. Everybody lives within
Everyone.
2 miles there.
My restaurant's for everyone. Everyone would love this restaurant. I said, no, that's different. Everyone may love this restaurant, but there's people who can't afford it. There's people who can't get here. There's people who don't see the value in spending this money in this way, right? We can name off a bunch of objections, right? So what you got to do is you got to start figuring out who your restaurant's for, what problem are you solving, all of that. Technology can help support that. But at the end of the day, this is foundational academic work. And if we're not willing, technology can't replace any of that work. It can just help us get really focused. Once we identify who our place is for, what problem we're solving, we can say, we know exactly who we are, we know exactly who we're for, we know exactly what problem we're solving. So let's go find exactly those people and let's make sure they know, we know what problem they have and that this is how we're solving it. Make sure they know we are for them. That's a very analog, basic, foundational principle. Now we've got digital tools at our disposal to help us do that better. That's the point that I make when I talk about technology so much. I'm absolutely enamored with this idea, this intersection of hospitality and tech, because I believe, listen, progress only moves in one direction. There's no going back, right? We are only going in one direction, and technology can help us, again, increase revenue, cut expenses, and create a better guest experience. I wholeheartedly believe that. But it's not gonna make up for any other shortcomings that exist within the business. You have to understand who you are, who you're for, what problem you're solving, the way in which you solve it, the way that solution is better than everybody else's solution, and you got to make sure everybody knows that. We use the digital tools at our disposal to communicate that. We say, oh, we have really great service. How? Well, because we get alerted on our wristwatches, on our whatever, and we all know that's how much we care that we injected this piece of technology into our operations to make sure that everybody was notified, that everybody took it seriously, and that nothing would slip between the cracks. That's a technological piece that is in service of a larger value, of a larger goal. On its own, who cares? It's a shiny novel toy, unless it is one of your stated values. Right? Danny Meyer, famously, just the other day, he's the guy who owns Shake Shack and Union Square Hospitality Group. And he owns, 4 or 5 of the very best restaurants here in New York City. And he just announced a new house account program, right? A house account program. This is genius. So you apply for it. Yeah, wouldn't it be great to never take out your phone, your card, your whatever? It just gets charged to it.
The country club model.
Yeah, listen, it's the country club model, exactly. Like, well, hey, listen, we'll just charge your card. We'll rack it up. We'll send you the bill at the end. We'll we'll charge your card once at the end of the month or every week or whatever that is. It's absolutely genius, but it speaks to their sense of hospitality, of home, of comfort. Everything that they're trying to exude as an organization is to make people comfortable. And if that helps them be more comfortable, then there's no fight when somebody's entertaining clients. They don't have to worry about the client trying to get for the bill. It's like, no, no, no. I'm on a house account, just like being at a country club. No, you're at my club. You are my guest. I am here to, this is my account. You are a guest. I am the member. Right?
It's funny how
it helps them reach the larger goal.
it's funny how a lot of things come full circle. I grew up at a country club, and we had a house account at a gas station when my brother was 16 back in, I don't know, mid 80s. We had a house before credit cards existed in that capacity. We had a house account. We went to the gas station. Sam Plapp, oh yeah, get your gas. We got you. Put your gas here. Sign here. I used to think it was funny. I'd sign all sorts of little names like shithead and stuff like that. And I was funny. And, yeah, not knowing that my dad saw it on. He's like, "You guys are idiots." But yeah, I mean, it's comical. Things come full circle. Well, time to wrap up. Chip, website address. How can people find out about you?
Yeah, listen, the Restaurant Strategy Podcast is the show I host. New episodes come out every Monday. Go check out, listen, I just did a video training. Talks all about profitability, gives a way to increase revenue, a way to cut expenses. I'm sending everybody there. There's ebooks, 2 different ebooks that I just released. Go watch the video. If you want the ebooks, you can email me. Go to restaurantstrategypodcast.com/thedailygrind. I work with chefs and operators to help pull them out of the daily grind so they can spend more time working on their business than in the business. If you like the video, if you want the ebooks, you can email me. It's chip@chipklose.com, CHIPKLOSE.com. I will happily give all that stuff for you. Just like you, Matt, I work with independent operators. That's the crew that I work with that I love to support.
Cool. And I love something you said there about getting out of the kitchen and maybe working on it. Deep Work Studios. It's based off of the book Deep Work by Cal Newport. I encourage every entrepreneur, man, read the book and start putting some of those things in place, because the problem I see with most small businesses is you work in it. You're an employee of it. You're employee number one, and you don't actually work on it. And the minute you start working on your business, you start thinking deeper. A lot of these things that were hard come a lot easier.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
I appreciate your time. I'll see you on the internet in the near future. And hopefully when I get up to New York in the near future, we'll have to hang out and have a cup of coffee.
Listen, Matt, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all the work you do. Such generosity in everything you put out there. It's really obvious, and it makes it really easy to be a part of. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks, brother. See y'all.
See you guys.